Good morning guys. We're back at it again with another video. So I did have some video clips that I recorded before we poured the ICF walls. That was going over some common questions that I've been seeing in the comments section. But when I went to edit that video, after we poured the ICF walls, those video clips were nowhere to be found. So I'm going to go over some of those common questions and then also go over some of the ledger detail as well, because that was an important part of that video. And if it seems like this video should have been posted before the ICF pour video, then you are correct. It is kind of out of order, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So one question was, how is the window bucking kind of secured within the foam ICF system here? So this is 2x8 lumber that's been ripped down to 6 inches wide so that it'll fit perfectly in the 6-inch cavity there. Once we get the window bucking in place and everything is plumbed up really nice, then we use these, for this ICF system, they're called windlock screws. It's a 4-inch screw that attaches from the foam right into the pressure treated wood here. And then on the back side of the bucking that is currently embedded in concrete is that there's a number of 3-inch screws that are just kind of holding the bucking in place. So once it's embedded in the concrete, it prevents the bucking from ever wanting to kind of like push in this way. Another little clarification about an ICF wall system is some people think that you remove the foam afterwards. It does act as formwork, but it also acts as insulation. So we've got 3 inches of rigid foam on the outside, we've got 6 inches of concrete through the center, and then we've got another 3 inches of foam on the interior as well. So the wall depth is a full 12 inches. And then on the inside here, different ICF systems have different kind of tie patterns and stuff. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you can see that little yellow piece right there, you can see it right there, you can see one right there. These are all attachment points that you can screw drywall into or any other type of fixture or anything like that. For backing, say for kitchen cabinets, you do something a little bit differently that I will show in upcoming videos. So that is some of the most common questions that I've seen. Now we'll show you some details of what we did before we actually poured the walls. So first thing that I'm doing here is getting the rest of the horizontal whalers going across the top with the Zont bracing system from Fabform. Really great system, really enjoyed using it. Now I'm attaching all the windlock screws going around all the door and window openings, and that just helps keep the foam real nice and tight to the window bucking so that there aren't going to be any blowouts. Now I'm using some 1x3 cut at 2-foot lengths to cover up all the marriage and common seams. Now there's one last little detail that I added to the top of the block here, and I just screwed some more 1x3 to the top 3 layers there just to ensure that those top layers are not going to be floating up on us, especially with the weight of the ledger board on there. It can kind of want to pull the blocks apart. Now I'm just filling up the common seam with some expandable foam, and the gap is there. It is done on purpose, so the gap allows you to basically plumb the walls up properly and to make sure that your wall lengths are going to be spot on. Here I'm cutting out the foam with a Sawzall, and this is where all the ledger bolts are going to be going across the length of the ledger board. Now to make sure that this was going to be perfect, I got the laser level out at nighttime and just triple checked that that ledger board is going to be perfectly level. Now I'm being joined by Mr. Bill from the Upside of Downsizing. A link to his channel will be down in the description box below. Go check him out. He's doing some awesome stuff, and he came over and helped me with getting all the ledger boards mounted. We ended up doing this in about 5 hours. We got everything cut, mounted, and ripped and ready to go.
So Bill is up on the scaffolding calling out measurements to me so that I can mark where all those ledger bolts are going to be going, and then also stagger them up and down throughout the ledger board as well. On the back side of the ledger board, we attach some sill gasket seal. This is because the back of the ledger board is going to be in contact with concrete. So since some of our joists are going to be exposed and our ledger boards are going to be exposed, I just wanted to use standard lumber for this as opposed to using pressure treated lumber. So that's why we had to attach that to the back of it. If you were to use LVLs for your ledger board, which is what I would recommend, then you'd still have to do that regardless. Once we get the board nice and level, then I'm just attaching some 3-inch screws going through the ledger board right into those yellow ties. So like I mentioned on the ICF pour video, we still need some rebar going around our door and window openings. So it was easy just because I took a 20-foot length, cut it in down to 15 feet, and then I had 5-foot pieces that I could use basically to connect the 2 top pours together.
So to give you a better visual representation of why you want to cut out the foam when you're doing a ledger board like we're doing for the second floor, is that you want this anchor bolt completely surrounded with concrete. If it wasn't done like that, then essentially the strength of the ledger board is really just kind of more reliant on the foam as opposed to the concrete. We want it attached directly to the concrete so that we have a nice, really solid surface, and that bolt is not going to be going anywhere. Since we're going to be doing this house in 2 pours, we need a way to connect basically the bottom pour to the top pour. So I just cut some rebar, number 5 rebar, at 5 feet, and I did have some vertical pieces sticking up, which you would have seen in the pour video. Those are mainly around the doors and the windows. So there's basically pieces going right from the floor and about 2 feet up past basically the top level here. So they're 15-foot pieces, but the vast majority of these pieces of rebar are actually only 5 feet. So they're just embedded about 2.5 feet, 3 feet into the concrete below, and then we've got about 2.5 feet sticking above. You just want those in place so that you're connecting the 2 pours together, since you're going to be pouring them at separate times. So now that the concrete is poured, we can tighten up all these ledger bolts here, and that'll just make sure that this ledger board for the second floor, it ain't going anywhere. Some other details which are very critical, especially when you're doing ICF, is that any big protrusions like this, so this is going to be a 4-inch exhaust fan in the bathroom right down here, is that we want to get any sleeves in there before we pour the concrete. So we'll be able to hook up the exhaust fan on the inside here, and then we've got the other piece sticking out right there. You've got to do the same thing for any plumbing drain lines or any other large protrusions that you want going through the ICF wall, because once this is completely filled with concrete, as it is right now, coring out a 4-inch hole in concrete is much more difficult than spending a few minutes beforehand and just getting your sleeves in place. So I used a piece of 8-inch sono tube here. This is the kitty door. So it's basically a door that goes between the pantry and the mechanical room, because the cat food and the kitty litter, they're going to be right through there. That's a 4-inch piece of PVC. That is a sleeve for a 2-inch drain line. That'll be for gray water going out there. In the ICF pour video, some of you might have noticed that I had orange masonry line going along all the long wall lengths. So we did toe in the walls just like a little bit, and then we basically plumbed them up completely when we're at about 10 feet worth of concrete in the walls, and then the walls are basically perfectly straight now. Incredibly straight. The straightest walls that I've ever freaking built. So those are some of the major details that I wanted to go over. What's really cool about doing ICF is that normally the walls are really flimsy when you're doing standard lumber construction. Until you get your sheathing on and you get the roof trusses in place, your walls aren't very, very solid. But the walls now, with the concrete, even though there's no joists or rafters or anything like that, the walls will not be going anywhere. They're solid. I hope that helps answer any questions. And the bracing itself could have actually been removed the day after. We're just over a week after we poured, and because I was going to the state of Georgia and helping acclimate with a water tank and so I just didn't have the time to get it all down. But we're going to be removing it now, working on the underground plumbing, then we're going to pour the slab, then the first floor framing, and then I can do the second